Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. On the 9th of July, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu inaugurated a committee to implement his government's livestock policy. At the time, the president announced that he would chair the committee, while Professor Atahiru Jega, a former election body chairman, would be his deputy and co-chairperson, to allow the government focus on livestock production and its associated benefits. The president said Nigeria's annual production of animal source foods like milk at 0.7 billion liters, meat at 1.48 million tons, and eggs at 0.69 million metric tons fall far short of the country's needs. Quote, our per capita consumption levels 8.7 liters of milk, 9 kilograms of meat, 3.5 kilograms of 45 eggs per year are troublingly low compared to global averages. End of quote. These are 44 liters of milk, 19 kg of meat, and between 160 and 180 eggs per year, the president said. Well, he explained that what is more worrisome is the average milk yield by cow breeds managed by pastoralists. This, he said, is a mere 0.5 to 1.5 liters per day compared to a global average of 6.6 liters per day. That Nigeria can do much better. Now, to fully demonstrate his commitment to driving this process, the president recently appointed a minister to implement the objectives. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will x-ray some of the issues surrounding the entire initiative for economic prosperity. But before we get into the conversation, let's get to see this background report put together by correspondent Musa Baba Aliu.
Nigeria, endowed with vast natural resources and diverse ecosystems, possesses significant potential for livestock development. The sector plays a vital role in the country's economy, contributing significantly to food security, empowerment, and income generation. Nigeria's livestock sector encompasses a variety of animals, including cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, and poultry. Recent statistics indicate that livestock sector in Nigeria is valued at over 3 trillion naira, with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations ranking Nigeria as one of the largest livestock producers in Africa. It is reported that the country has an estimated 563 million chickens, 58 million cattle, 124 million goats, 60 million sheep, and 16 million pigs. Investigations further reveal that the country is importing about 1.5 billion naira worth of milk and other dairy products daily. Some of the key challenges in livestock development in the country include insecurity and violent conflicts, particularly in the northern region.
It makes sense that we are solving a security problem by supporting a sector that in some countries is a major contributor to gross domestic product.
Climate change and environmental degradation are other factors forcing livestock breeders to migrate from the north to south. Additionally, poor infrastructure and financial constraints have always been challenges in poultry and fish production.
Reforming and repositioning the livestock sector would also help us to mitigate the perennial conflicts between farmers and herders, which have bedeviled the sector with negative consequences to peaceful coexistence, community relations, and beneficial productive activities.
The policies and programs being introduced by the Tinubu-led administration aim to put the country's livestock sector on a sustainable track.
It's about time that we do it right. A country of over 200 million people, I cannot serve our children 1 pint of milk in the classroom per day. We are going to give it all it needs to bring value to our country.
What we're doing here today is laying the foundation of a better future. For us in the state and the local governments, that's where the land is. We have to make efforts to make land available, to make the federal government's policy a success.
We shall also mobilize our people to take active part in the livestock sector development initiatives for the overall interest of our great country, Nigeria.
The diverse experiences and perspectives of stakeholders will enrich the ongoing transformation of the sector and help shape policies that will create Nigeria's sustainable livestock economy that is globally competitive.
A Minister of Livestock Development has been created and Minister Designate has been appointed to drive government policies and programs. Musa Baba Aliyu.
Well, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests. All four of them tonight are members of the the Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee. But let's introduce them to you. We'd like to welcome Professor Mohammed Kutayahaya. He is a professor of agricultural extension at the University of Ibadan. Let me just say, put that in true perspectives. Professor of Agricultural Extension at the University of Ibadan. He's secretary of the Presidential Committee, the Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee. But he also wears a number of caps. He's also pro-chancellor of the Abdul Qadir Kure University in Mina, Niger State, and also one-time secretary to the Niger State government. Thanks for being here tonight.
It's a pleasure to join you, Chris. Thank you.
Let me also welcome to this program Mrs. Winnie Laisholari, a member of the Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee and a director of Animal Husbandry Services, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. She's the country focal person for the Resilient Feed Systems Project in Nigeria. Thanks for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Also with us tonight is Assistant Inspector General of Police Aishatu Abubakar Baju, a member of the Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee. But let's also inform you that she is President of the Veterinary Council of Nigeria. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
And also joining us tonight is Dr. Mustafa Puka, also a member of the Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee. And just to also mention that he's an animal genetic resources and gene bank expert in nanobiotechnology. Thanks for joining us tonight.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So all four guests of ours tonight are professionals in the field, and so we do expect a robust conversation tonight. As you know, at some point in time, the program goes interactive. It means you can join in the conversation, but we'll wait until it is that time, and then we'll remind you of the process and the procedures. But to kick off, let's refer to the President's speech, where he underlined some statistics and said, of course, that the potential of livestock in Nigeria is huge. Let's start, Prof, by asking you, put that into perspective. What was it before, and what are we looking at here? Because if you say the potential is massive, immense, what has it been like?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me join other Nigerians to appreciate President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this window of opportunity. And we owe him a debt of gratitude for the boldness to take the bull by the horn and make sure that this sector that has over the years been marginalized to become part of the economic and social agenda in Nigeria. As you are aware, Nigeria has the highest population of livestock in Africa. Unfortunately, by performance, the abysmal performance of each of these breeds is what Mr. President copiously stated in his speech. Therefore, he has opened up the space so that all stakeholders, from breeders to producers, and indeed the entire value chain, has been challenged by Mr. President to change the narrative. Because if, for instance, you talk about milk production, you're talking about the traditional mode of moving from one part to the other, the animals exhaust the entire potential for production to abysmal low level of 1.5 liters maximum. Compared to other climes, where you talk about 44, 45 liters per day. And some of the practitioners we have seen in recent times have in their ranches or in their sheds animals that have been crossbred that are able to produce an average of 10 liters, which is a departure from the low-level production of our traditional ones. So that means if we deploy all our scientific and innovations to the sector, it will enhance the performance of livestock across the entire value chain, not only in cattle, but all other animals put together. There are a lot of developments now that are coming up, either to, we're talking of artificial insemination in order to do some technology, but what we have now, embryo technology, transfer, whereby a whole embryo is transferred, so you get all the traits you want, and they have higher rate of success than even artificial insemination. So in the same breath, other smaller animals, because livestock is not all about cattle, you are talking about pig, swine, and poultry, which you can say that every household in Nigeria, 98% have one form of poultry or the other, either backyard type or modern type. And egg production has gradually improved with some of the breeds that have been produced, along many other things. So Mr. President has challenged us that this committee should bring about all the reforms that are currently obstacles to the advancement of the livestock sector in Nigeria. And we are pleased to say that Mr. President is the #1 leader because he took it upon himself to chair this committee and to be co-chaired by a very well-respected Nigerian, Professor Atai Rujega, who has taken it seriously. And the composition of members of our team is made up of professionals across, the line. We have practitioners in livestock production. We have experts in veterinary medicine. We have animal scientists. We have extension professionals. We have nutrition experts. It's a combination of wholesome assembly by Mr. President to be the drivers of these reforms. And by the time this committee is done, you will appreciate that Mr. President will be appreciated more by Nigerians, because gradually the committee is receiving a lot of, commendation from people and collaboration. How many people want to open up the space and participate in the entire livestock sector? So for us, I think is a game changer, because it has the potential for not only unlocking the economic diversification that the government is driving at, but also the social angle of reducing conflict between herders and farmers that has become legendary and historical because of the struggle for feed and water. So all these things put together, the committee just recently has had some interaction, even with subnationals, who are already key into Mr. President's agenda in this sector, led by the governor of Kwara State and chairman of Nigerian Governors Forum, Madam Abdurrahman Abdurazak, who said it point blank that all the governors are ready to queue behind Mr. President in order to advance the issue of the livestock sector in our country.
All right. So many issues coming up. We'll take them in greater detail as we go on. But let's come to Mrs. Laisha Larry. Yes, thinking is that not much was realized about the potential livestock in the past, and we didn't see much about, didn't appreciate what it could contribute to the economy. So now that the president has created this avenue to do it, how do you begin to restart a sector as such, given the fact that most of the statistics we do have now stem from practices that we could term traditional practices, very poor yield?
Thank you very much. You have started rightly by saying that we have poor yield across the species. And this is largely because we have not focused on livestock for a long time. With this renewed focus, it's easier for us now to take species by species and build the resilience around the species, the ecosystem they operate, the infrastructure they need, and then also to build the capacity around the producers, because most of our livestock are in the hands of pastoralists. About 82% of them, of livestock, are in the hands of pastoralists, while in the poultry sector you have just 1% in subsistence hands. So what we intend to do in the new ministry is to renew our zeal in building the capacity of the pastoralists, of bringing in technology into the livestock space, of increasing improving the breed of livestock that we currently have, of bringing in newness in the livestock sector. With this and bringing in all professionals, having our hands all on deck, we'll be able to transform the livestock sector. If you also recall that over the years, very little budgetary allocation has been given to the livestock sector, and this has made it very difficult for us to actually carry out activities end to end. We have had to truncate activities because of budgetary allocation. It is the hope of Nigerians that the new livestock ministry will have the required budgetary allocation, and we also have the political will already shown by Mr. President and the governors. And so we will not have only activities at the federal level, but that the subnationals we also key in, and whatever it is that is coming from the national will be implemented and sustained beyond. And then the involvement of the private sector in the area of livestock development is also at the focus of the new ministry. As you are aware, over 70% of our livestock enterprise depend on feed. And so feed accounts for about 70%. And over the years, we've not paid attention to feed and fodder. There is this zeal and renewed attention in that sector. We know that the pastoralists move because they are searching for feed and water. And so attention on feed and fodder, making that sector viable, making that sector able to provide not only feed for the animals, but employment for Nigerians is the focus of the new ministry.
All right. Fair enough. Let's move on to AIG Aishatu Baju. You, the president of the Veterinary Council of Nigeria, that's a critical component of the livestock industry. And again, if we cast our minds on how it's been for so many years, that we haven't done too well in that as well. So now that we're approaching livestock, an entirely new initiative, what is the position?
Well, thank you very much once again, Cyril. This is a good time for the entire animal health sector. I was in just a few days ago for the NVMA Congress, And during my speech, I made it very clear that this is vet o'clock, because right from inception of Mr. President, when he came on board, he went to India. I remembered very well. The first thing he said, our veterinarians are not this. He mentioned the vets like more than 3 times. And he has challenged us, and the veterinarians have been called upon to rise to the occasion. As Mrs. Solarin said, this is one time that focus is being put on the livestock. When we are clocked in as Ministry of Agriculture, so much attention, because putting attention on crops and animals, you know, it takes over. But now there's political will from Mr. President to pay attention to the animal, to the livestock industry. And for us, we are gearing up as the Veterinary Council of Nigeria. We are the regulatory agency to enhance the capacity of our veterinarians to meet up to this challenge, to provide the required, strengthen our own regulatory framework to ensure that we provide the best services. We're looking at infrastructure, which has decayed over years. But now with this renewed up agenda on livestock reform by Mr. President, it's a good thing, and everybody is committed along that, along all the professionals in the in the animal health sector, to make sure that this initiative or reform of Mr. President does not go to waste. So we're looking at so many issues in terms of disease control, disease surveillance, infrastructure, capacity building around our veterinarians. So these are the whole thing going on. And as our secretary said, the presidential committee is made up of all these professionals. And just a few days ago, you were there when we had the stakeholder engagement. You can see all the relevant stakeholders have been called so that we can put our heads together and know from all the various value chain of the livestock industry, we put our heads together to make sure that Mr. President's livestock reform agenda, renewed up agenda, actually succeeds.
Enlighten us for just a moment, if you would. I'm not quite sure that even what we had in the past, we had nearly enough veterinarians in the country. And now that we're looking to expanding the scope, you think that will be one of the challenges that we're going to face?
Well, for now, I can tell you that from our register, we have close to 10,000 veterinarians in Nigeria. Some states, like Yobe, Adamawa, some of them have veterinarians in their service about more than 100, which is actually grossly inadequate. A lot of these veterinarians, some are in the private sector, a lot of them, but now is about partnership between between government and private sector. But we're also calling on state governments. We have states also that have just 2 veterinarians in their state services, which is, I mean, how can you achieve that? We are saying that each local government should have at least a veterinary clinic. We have federal veterinary centers, medical centers. So in that case, government also has to step up to employ more veterinarians into the services and also partnering with those in the private sector. So it's a joint thing. It's multifaceted. Everybody has to put both the private and government. But government also need to step up to engage more veterinarians in their service, because there is an administrative component to be able to, especially with the new ministry now.
Right. Okay. We'll talk more on that. But let's come to Dr. Mustafa Puka, and easily your field, your expertise. That's the first thing that we will think about. And of course, when we see that the traditional methods have not been nearly as good enough to meet our requirements, the place of animal genetics in this whole initiative, that's one. What are we looking at here in terms of boosting the number, the species, and even the yield from these livestock?
Okay, thank you so much. And I think let me join other Nigerians and professionals and colleagues in the sector generally to appreciate Mr. President for us. Creating the Ministry of Livestock Development is one of the boldest steps the President has actually taken. because if you look at the sector and you look at what we have there today, you agree with me that with all the statistics, it was actually looking southward, and it's something that we could actually take northward when we get the genetic resources correctly. So what has happened over the years is that we've been keeping the same type of animal, and there has been a lot of genetic depletion and genetic erosion. So coupled with the climate change that we have of recent, and actually the hinting globally, is actually having effects on the productivity of our animals, like it's having effect on the environment. There's what we call epigenetics. That is the interaction between genetics and environment. And that is something that we've not been paying attention to. So we don't expect an animal that is actually living in a suboptimal environment where the husbandry is not good to actually give you productivity. The fact remains that it's only an happy animal that can be productive. And that's the only things that we need to quickly achieve. So let me talk a bit about the gene pool of what we have as a country. So before now, or let me say globally, as at 2020, we have about over 3,000 breeds of animal across the world. As at 2023 now, 2024, we have over 7,000. So meaning that that has doubled. And when you look at the contribution of Africa to this particular population on the global scale, is usually 10%. And 10% of what has happened then, we could actually, as at 2020, in 2024, we do not even have up to that 10% contribution to the global statistics. So now coming to Nigeria, you could see that instead of us actually increasing in the number of breeds that we have, we're actually having extinction. And I can tell you that for over 100 years, over 30% of Nigerian breeds have gone into extinction, and some are still going. And one very clear example I can quickly give is what you see around the Lake Chad region, where we have displacement of over 30,000 livelihood because of the shrinking of that Lake Chad. It's not only human beings that are being shrinked, in terms of population, it includes the animal that they are keeping too. And that has led us largely to lose the breed that is very popular in the cow, the Kuri breed, with the biggest horn that we have in Nigeria. Some are actually going on they are already on the endangered list now. And we continue to say we want to drive an animal, we actually want to walk an animal that are already endangered to give us the productivity. That will not work. So in the interim, I think part of what we are looking at is to actually go back to the basics. So for every crop, for example, that you grow, there must be a seed. So the seed in the livestock sector is the genetic resources. So when the seed is not of quality, it cannot give you what you want. It's like somebody, anybody now feeding a dwarf to actually give you a giant. So you could actually feed the whole thing. It might be eating all your food, and you're actually wasting your resources because the fundamental is that he is a dwarf. So what technology allows us to see and know today is that at the inception, when the gametes are being crossed together to actually bring out the offspring, we could know if this particular offspring is going to be a dwarf or is going to be a giant. So as of today, we have all those technology. So Nigerians need to actually ramp up this technology to catch up here. So when you look at the US, you're going to be hearing about Frisian breed, Holstein Frisian that we're talking about. Many of them actually undergo nothing less than 100 years of domestication before they get the best out of them. But today, with genomics, with omics technology generally, we could actually achieve that in 5 to 10 years. And this is where we need to actually kickstart what we need to do in terms of transformation and reformation of the genetic resources. When we get that one fixed, then we could actually be feeding for purpose, we can be breeding for purpose, and the people that actually want to take each of the value chain, we could expand it to say, I want to be doing a cow-calf production, for example. Some people in advanced country, all what they do is to actually get the animal pregnant, and they get the calf. At a certain age, they actually trade in only calf. So it's like what you have in the poultry sector, where you can actually trade day-old chicks. So you can trade on calf. It's not everybody that must be saying, I'm doing multi-purpose animals. So the genetic resources is going to guide us into expanding the value chain and bringing new innovation. This is where the youth and the women inclusivity can be driven. This is where the value of the 33 trillion size of our sector can actually be unleashed, because when you broken up this and you bring in innovation, youth are encouraged to do a lot of things. And you could actually see a new lab, and using biotechnology, you could ramp up productivity over the years. And I think that is the way to go.
Well, as you speak, I'm seeing a number of crossbreeds already, but we're going to get to that stage when we'll talk about them. But we also have a number of reports. We have the first one. This is coming from Kebbi.
Immense potentials for livestock growth, with over 80% of its population engaged in peasant farming. The state is a home to an impressive livestock population: 1.8 million cattle, 2.2 million sheep, 2.8 million goats, 50,000 camels, 200,000 donkeys, and 20,000 horses. According to agriculturalist Abdurrahman Abubakar, livestock production offers numerous benefits, including meat, milk, and hide production, as well as draft oxen for farm traction.
It provides income to the farmers, and as well it provides employment opportunity. Nowadays, you look at some of the challenges that we face. Most of the youth are reluctant, they don't participate in the agricultural sector, but if they are harnessed, it can provide a lot of employment opportunities.
However, despite this potential, animal production in Kebbi State faces significant challenges, hindering growth and development.
You can't imagine what a bull can feed in a day, And like our local Fulanis who keep, many of them tens of 20, 30, 40, some of them even 100. You can imagine how they can feed them, even for one day, no talk of during a season. And most of the places, the Gandu where these Fulanis and the other livestock keepers feed their animal have now been turned into towns and cities and houses and what have you, and the farms. That's why you have a lot of squabbles between farmers and cattle rearers.
To address the issues, the Kebbi State government has established the Ministry of Animal Health, Fisheries and Husbandry. The ministry provides essential services to overcome the problems facing livestock production.
There are several livestock plans in the pipeline. The government is constantly providing veterinary services to our livestock, and is also given us a subsidized rate of wheat offals and salt licks. So even by that, we appreciate him. At least he's helping our farmers to see our livestock and they are in a wealthy state.
With government support and private investment, Kebbi State's livestock sector can unlock its full potential, driving economic growth, job creation, and food security. The state is poised to become a leading livestock producer in Nigeria. In Burin Kebbi, Jafari Sofilo.
All right, our next report comes from Ebonyi.
Since the inception of the present administration, several efforts have been made towards increasing both government and private participation in livestock farming to achieve food sufficiency and security. These efforts were kept up through the creation of the Ministry of Livestock Development by the federal government. But have these efforts trickled down to the states for proper harnessing of the potential inherent in the sector? The Ebonyi State Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources, Princess Nkechinyere Iyoku, said the state is replicating the efforts by encouraging private sector participation and reviving the moribund hatchery farm established by the first civilian administration in the state. She said the hatchery farm, which has the capacity of holding over 100,000 birds, would be a good source of employment and economic base when completely revitalized. So far, both the broilers and layer stations have been fixed with 15,000 layers already in stock, while 10,000 broilers are expected in few days' time.
Livestock Productivity and Resilience Support Project is a World Bank project and is all about livestock. We have started in Ebonyi here to make sure that the livestock farmers provide.
The project is geared towards every value chain under the livestock, like the feed sellers, the feed producers, the egg sellers, those who are selling, the transporters. These people will also have their benefit under the AluPress project.
Some livestock farmers, however, lamented the high cost of production and appealed for subsidization of feeds as seen in other areas in the agricultural sector.
We are at festive season now. Price of the mature broilers and egg are going high now because a lot of farmers are already out of business. And why are they out of business? The cost of inputs ranging from poultry feed, maize are times 3 already. And the cost of finished goods are appreciated, but not up to what is appreciated in the inputs. And when you finish rearing, you hardly recover your income, talking of making profits.
To produce a broiler that ordinarily supposed to have cost 2,000 something in Ebonyi today, it will take a farmer up to 8,000 something.
With this renewed attention, the livestock farming subsector has the potential of not only providing employment and improving the economic base of the country, but can also improve foreign reserve through private investment in view of its high yield and export potentials. In Abakaliki, Samuel Okpo.
All right, let's back here in the studio. Let's look at some of the issues involved here, which are key priority areas. First, people talk for these reforms to be driven: land, access to water, security, and of course, vet support. EIG has already couched, a new word, vet o'clock, she said. Well, we'll explore that further. But let's examine how accessibility to these key issues would be in driving these reforms.
Yeah, even in crop production, there are factors of production that you cannot ignore. And particularly, you talk about land, labor, capital, they are all required. The same thing goes for the livestock sector. At the just concluded stakeholders consultation in Abuja, we all identify some of the current challenges, and I wish to refer to what Mr. President said during our inauguration as a committee on July 22nd, 2024. He said, people see challenges, but he sees opportunities. So in the sense that every challenge is not insurmountable. For example, the common denominator for livestock producers is feed and fodder. Is a common feature. So if there is scarcity, it's a challenge to entire stakeholder space. For those who are complaining about maize, the competition between man and animals for maize is legendary, is serious. So this is a big challenge to scientists and researchers into alternative feeds. I'm aware that in the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, Ibadan, many scientists from NAPRI in Ahmadu Bello University Zaria and other research institutes, they have come up with prototypes, alternatives, especially cassava peels that can be produced into pellets and fed to animals, which is a good substitute or part of the ingredients for the animal feed. So it's a challenge to researchers now to think out of the box and see how they can provide solutions. However, we all agree at the conference that one of the major obstacles is finance. Financing livestock sector has become very, very difficult because giving loans at single digit is the dream so that farmers can access capital to support their work, while research institutes will need funding in order to carry out cutting-edge technology, to discover cutting-edge technology that can solve some of these problems. So therefore, the holistic approach to this is that the entire value chain will require the participation of relevant stakeholders to bring about the desired changes. and generate innovations that will amplify productivity, that will also reduce the pressure for competition between man and animals. And also, we discovered that most of the products are being smuggled out of Nigeria, leaving the country dry. So the security apparatus at the borders must also be put on red alert to ensure that we meet the domestic requirements and address domestic need for some of these products. You smuggle them to Central African Republic through our porous borders, and those countries benefit while you leave your own country in a very difficult situation. So I think these are some of the issues, and I'm happy my colleague, based on their own research in genetic engineering, offers some promise where you can produce new species that will be resistant to some of the diseases that are prevalent. And we are now also dealing with organic processes of production where chemicals applications are limited. There is also the prospect of integrated production system where one product from the sector is going to be important to another sector. So you recycle all the product, nothing is a waste in this sector. And we have seen good examples in our climate, so that we can escalate some of these good examples that we have seen, and maybe the states need to carry out what we call demonstration sites, where our pastoralists can go and see what is happening and even conduct what we call experiential learning trips to other countries like Kenya that have been able to conquer its migratory system and increase its productivity, and Botswana, that is unarguably today a leading exporter of beef to Europe. These are small countries that doesn't have Nigerian potentials. In terms of GDP, hitherto, countries like Burkina Faso have a kind of 55% contribution to GDP from animal agriculture. So it's still not acceptable that we are still operating between 9 to 10% contribution to GDP from animal agriculture because of what Mr. Solari said, poor attention that the sector have suffered over the years. So, and I'm sure Mrs. Winnie will tell you that if they go to other countries where you're having interministerial conference or conversation on livestock sector, Nigeria has to sit at the back because you only have a director representing Nigeria. But today, from now on, no country will put Nigeria at the back bench again, because a minister is going to head the ministry and will even eventually end up chairing some of those sessions, which cannot happen in the past. So I believe this is a window of opportunity that we all have been waiting for. And now that we are here to add value to the conversation, we are telling Nigerians that a new vista has opened up for the sector, whereby people can make money and also address some of these challenges that are facing them. Young people are now available to take advantage of this sector and also open it up for their own engagement. Our universities, research institute, we beckon on them to take advantage of this laudable initiative and make sure that they contribute maximally. All the space and lands wasting in many places can be converted to useful further production. Even some countries today are asking Nigeria to supply feed and fodder. So it's an entire ecosystem that is going to create an opportunity for economic boom and prosperity, if properly harnessed.
Right. Let me refer briefly to the recent stakeholders meeting, and where, of course, the president sounded elated by the remarks of the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum when he spoke about access to land and seeing that there are some states with huge you know.
Like Niger State.
Well, of course, like Niger, I mean, has, of course, the largest land mass in the country, and he referred to such states. But you do also have states which have very limited land resources. If we agree that a large proportion of Nigeria's livestock are in the hands of pastoralists, and of course, these are people with the traditional methods of husbandry, what from the end of this ministry would begin to be the priority in accessing land, changing attitudes and traditional methods to drive this initiative?
Thank you again, Cyril. We're back to this land issue, and our animals largely in the hands of pastoralists are practicing traditional method. Not that it's not a system of production, it is. However, we cannot get to where we want to go with that traditional method. And the traditional method will require large expanse of land, like you have said. And this land is shrinking because population is growing. And we also have climate change affecting our own ecosystem as well. So the drive now is to reduce that number, the 82% of our livestock in the hands of pastoralists, reduce that number. Begin to encourage pastoralists to modernize, and it's already happening. We have, particularly in the dairy sector, you cannot have your animal, you cannot have high yield with by flogging your animals from one end to the other. You can't get that yield by keeping the low breed, the breed with low yield you currently have. So that will also will have to change, and it's already changing. But beyond that are the peri-urban farmers. And now we have a profession that is largely not known, and that is the animal science profession. The animal scientists that go through school, 5 years in school, another additional year in internship. There are so many in the country, and they can get their hands on rearing livestock. And back to the livestock development. We don't have to leave our animals in the hands of pastoralists alone. We know that we largely depend on them right now. They need to modernize, but we need to raise a crop of Nigerians that will go into modern livestock production while we gradually transit from where we are today, the extensive system of production, to semi-intensive. We need young Nigerians, young animal scientists to get into the field. We need to employ and we need to engage at the private level these young Nigerians to get into livestock production. And you know that currently we are not producing enough milk. We are importing up to 1.5 to 1.2 million naira worth billion naira worth of milk, and that tells on our foreign.
Milk is so very expensive.
And milk is expensive. But we have the animals to give us this milk, and we have the potential that to increase the breeds that we currently have. But we need to engage the young Nigerians to get into this, and we need to collect more milk. So there's a lot we can do. There is aggregation of milk, which we have not even talked about. So we have milk wasting. So beyond just having the land, is also having the professionals that will utilize this land for the right purposes. And then we don't necessarily need the large expanse of land if we are to modernize. And because you can increase your carrying capacity if you plant the right kind of maize for animal feed and the right kind of pasture for animal feed. So the new ministry has a lot of work to do, and we are ready for that assignment, because we know that the potential we currently have in the sector, in the livestock sector, we are yet to meet it. And we have Nigerians that are out there interested, but they cannot get into the system. Now is the opportunity to open up the livestock sector, to get the private sector involved, to get the financial institutions involved, and like the Professor Kuta said, to make sure that we regulate as much as we can the financial aspect, to make sure that it's not this double digit that we are talking about, but to make it single digit and make it attractive again for Nigerians, young Nigerians, to get into the livestock sector. So we have the land, yes. We also have the types of livestock that we don't need that size of land. So we have everything going for us. We have land, and then we also have different species of livestock that we can also rear. So, you know, the Ministry of Livestock Development has all it takes, and has also the environment and the climate required for us to open up that sector.
Well, and that will take me straight to the next area I want to go to. And I'm coming with this to AIG Aishatu Baju, and immediately after she comments on this, because it touches on the field of Dr. Pupola here as well. Concern, of course, must be over the question of the diseases that have also ravaged Nigeria's livestock industry. I remember a long time ago, there was this particular one which was pretty devastating. Yes.
Rinderpest?
Yes.
Avian influenza.
Right. The avian influenza, the other, the rinderpest, which they called kirchi at one point. Yes. Okay. And all those. And so attention must be on those. But in a situation where some would say, because of the genetics involved at this time, and you're bringing in technology here, and probably growing what would be novel in these parts, what are the fears about some of these diseases that are beginning to show, and which people are claiming as a result of what we locally term interfering with nature?
Well, thank you very much once again, Cyril. You see, you know, when you asked me the first time, I talked about building capacity. We have to intensify disease surveillance. You know, it's just like intelligence gathering when you're talking about disease surveillance. So there are a lot of transboundary diseases also coming because of movement, cattle movement from one point to the other. So when we start keeping the animals semi-intensive, as she said, and monitoring disease surveillance and control, vaccinations, getting the right drugs, because some of these diseases, most of them are actually preventable diseases. You can actually prevent them by vaccination, massive annual vaccination. And now that we have a ministry, we have a focus on the livestock, so we'll have more funds, more drugs available for us to be able to treat some of these diseases that are treatable or prevent them, those that are preventable through vaccination programs. And then we also have looking at animal tracking and traceability. All these ones are very, very important when it comes to disease control in the country. So for the vets, we're looking at now even issues of drugs and policies that make drug very expensive, veterinary drugs very expensive, is another issue that we're looking at. So from this stakeholder engagement, we are looking at how do we now look at these policies that are bringing problem in terms of bringing in the right drugs, not fake drugs, and so on and so forth. When you look at some of the laws and regulation, the cost of importation of drugs, registering of these drugs, and so on and so is quite so much. I don't think there's any country in Africa that charges as much as what we are charging in bringing veterinary drugs into the country. So these are some of the issues that we actually look at it. And then having the veterinarians, as I said, there is no way a state will have just 2 veterinarians and you want to control diseases. So you have to employ more veterinarians, not just the DVMs. We also have the veterinary paraprofessionals, the community animal health workers. So all these ones, we build their capacity in areas of disease control and treatment, making sure that our animals are healthy.
Right, Dr. Pupola, if you just take it up from that point.
Okay, also thank you so much, Cyril. One fundamental thing that actually we need to be talking about is reforms and transformation. So we should not start from the point of analysis paralysis. Again, we actually need to move forward because, I mean, that is the intention of Mr. President. Let me give it back to President that what many Nigerians are actually not seeing, even people that are in the sector before, you could see far beyond that. Every time he talks about possibilities, he talks about prosperity, and that's what we can say. One fundamental thing that I think as a country we actually need as pivots to this particular reform is the domestication of the global plan of action on animal genetic resources. Again, this is a global plan that Nigeria was a signatory since 2007, and we've actually not done the implementation. So this particular committee on reforms has actually symbolized that particular thing and signposted it as a way to go. I'll take you through what it means immediately, and the Nigerians can actually benefit from the discussion, and you could see that everything added up in that particular global plan of action. I mean, I'm talking about 2007, Nigeria being a signatory among about over 160 nations across the world, and not really domesticating that global plan of action, nor even implementing it. What does it say? The first critical pillar of domestication of global plan of action is looking at characterization of our animal, inventorization to know their number by species, by breed, and where they are, and monitoring. So definitely what he's telling us that is that when you see a white cow moving, it doesn't mean that that white cow and the next one are the same, of the same genotype. So, and these animals are being treated the same way, given the same water, the same feed, and at the same time expecting the same result, whereas genetically they are different. So it's a waste of resources, it's a waste of time. So, I mean, that was why I said the Global Plan of Action, as of 2007, is saying, go and characterize your animal, know your animal. And
I'm not cutting you short, but as you speak, it brings to mind a recent controversy. You talked about characterization and even how many animals we do have.
Correct.
And you found out that there was this heated debate over what some people have termed a census of animals. Even though they went in and said, no, this was a matter of knowing how many cows. They settled for only cows. And by the way, for quite a long time, any talk of livestock, a lot of Nigerians would automatically refer it to cattle. So is that the...
That's the point I want to say, because I'm going to somewhere. You know, I actually mentioned four. I'll quickly run through them, and they come back to one fundamental issue that we need to all take in as a way to go, and it's a solution, because actually, at this time, with the reforms, we should be speaking to solution so that people can actually pick it up and run with it. So when you have done this, characterization, inventorization might mean census, a systematic census. And it's supposed to be a continuous process, meaning that you need to build a database that you are improving upon. Let me say this, it's not a joke, but many animals that are born in Nigeria have never experienced naming ceremony. I'm saying that because when you go across the country, you don't see your animal with tags. Everywhere you've traveled to across the world, tell me a single country where you see animals without tags. Those tags has meaning. It has a name, it has a code, it tells you the progeny, the pedigree of that animal. It tells you a lot by ordinarily using your phone to scan. And these days, you actually have even chips. You don't need to see it physically. You could actually read a lot of data with that, and then the chips can actually tell you the health status of that animal and the nutritional requirements. This is technology. We are not talking about even cloning now. We are not talking about advanced one. We are talking about very basic one. This reform committee, made of experts, are looking at this sector dispassionately because we know the expectation of Mr. President. And all of us cannot say we are experts with different experiences and we are going to let the president down. That is why, from our engagement, from the inception report, a lot of stakeholders across the country, including the governors, are interested in what we are talking about because this is a new perspective. We are actually giving the sector a new horizon. I mentioned only one. The second thing is that if you have done those three I mentioned initially, that is when you can actually talk about sustainable use of that genetic resources. What does that mean? That is where breeding comes in. Before now, all what we talk about is artificial insemination. We could do a lot beyond artificial insemination. You could actually form your embryo. Let me give you an example. Today, before now, people are talking about problem of fertility, even in human being. But you could see the solution that IVF has brought into human system. It's the same thing for animal. You could actually know the sire, you can know the dam, and you can know their genetic basis to say, this animal is going to look like this. If this man and woman, or if this male and female actually met together to give this is going to be the result. A situation whereby we have our animals raping themselves around, and we are calling it breeding, does not make sense. That is why we cannot even say this is the end result of the mating process we are seeing and the pregnancy. You see a lot of pregnancy. Before now, you go to the market. Some of the goats that we have about 20 years ago, through natural breeding, are you getting it? I've gotten to their peak of advancement. So you see retrogression and depletion. So some of the goats we have now, they are as big as small rabbits. And these are the things you see everywhere in the country. So, and we are talking about productivity because you know the end game are the animal product, the meat they make. So if you have been able to fix the first two, the next thing is for you to now conserve. Let me say this to us. Resilience we are talking about, climate change we are talking about. We have lost many biodiversity. In the whole of the world, the West African sub-region has the best and the highest biodiversity when it comes to animal genetic resources. And as of today, I was talking to you that we have a lot of genetic erosion. Some of them even gone into extinction. And there are traits that are in them that makes them to be resistant to diseases that ordinarily, when you brought in exotic breed, is going to affect them. And lastly, the fourth pillar is when you do all these three, you can actually now be talking about institutional arrangement and policies to now bring in sustainability in what we are talking about. So see that beautiful global plan of action. And the country has not domesticated that since 2007. So that is why this Presidential Reform Committee, led by the President himself, co-chaired by Professor Jiga, is saying, wait a minute, we cannot proceed in error. We need to actually wait a minute, check ourselves, pause, and bring critical issues of national development that can unlock that 33 trillion on the table.
Right. It's a point where we'll take a break. When we return, there'll be more about this matter of livestock development. And hopefully the phone lines will be open and you can join in the conversation in the studio. So stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
All right, thanks for staying with us. It's NTA Tuesday Live. It's livestock development. the unlocked potentials. We have another report to start up this segment, but let me just quickly say that this is when we open the phone lines. The numbers to call will be on your screen. You can take advantage of those numbers and call in. And as we say every week, if you're calling in, your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we always encourage you to go straight to the point so others can also get on the platform and air their views. And we ask you not to bother too much about greetings. Just a simple hello would do. So now we'll start off with another of our reports. This one is from Makurdi.
Production constitutes a critical component of the agricultural economy in developing nations, contributing about 1.7% of the Nigeria's gross domestic product, as well as 9% to the agricultural value chain. Apart from providing employment as a source of income to millions of Nigerians, the sector serves as a source of meat, milk, eggs, and other products. However, livestock production is constrained by several factors, including cost of feeds, startup capital, and markets for operators.
You buy goat 60,000. Before you sell this goat, it will become in 1 week or 2 weeks. The interest you are supposed to get 500 or 1,000, you go chopper, enter your capital again. So these things are bringing us back.
Birds are very expensive. Their feeding is very expensive too. So we find it difficult to rear chicken or animals generally.
According to them, access to more funds and facilities will boost the sector.
The bag of breed right now, this 50 kg is 52,500 naira. That is how we buy it from the market. And when you come to when you train the fowl finish at the end of the day, there's no market.
For experts in livestock production, more investments and incentives should be made available by government to encourage this all-important component to achieve the desired results and benefits.
Sometimes when diseases outbreak in our climate, in our environment, like here in Enugu State, the Ministry of Agriculture, particularly the Livestock Department, is trying so much, but they are just who they are. I mean, as much as they are. We need more hands, because when disease outbreak comes, farmers who are in the hinterland, they hardly even know what to do.
They are of the opinion that the livestock master plan should be fully implemented to ensure not just direct food production, but also providing animal skin, fiber, fertilizer, and fuel, as well as capital accumulation. In Makurdi, Elias, ETF.
Right. So back here in the studio, there are also other issues to raise. And one particular matter I want us to thrash out at this point. Yes, the economic benefits will come to that. But there's a basic thing which, for many, we'll be looking at here. The security situation and how these reforms will impact Nigeria's security situation on one hand, and also the question of coexistence and peaceful coexistence. And here I'm referring to the frequent herder-farmer clashes, which is multidimensional. How will this initiative impact on this and bring it to the nearest minimum?
Thank you. That is why the committee found it expedient to have stakeholders conversation and to get all the actors on the table to come up with issues that affect their activities as either livestock producers, processors, marketers, and indeed even transporters. The value chain is huge. I'll give you an example. When some of the professional associations came on board, they contacted that they suffer multiple taxation along the routes when doing their business. So, and some of them mere extortion. And these are the things that will, at the end of the day, increase the cost of animals at the final destination, passing it to the consumer. But not only that, the issues that are bound in this situation is that in the quest to ensure harmonious coexistence between the actors in the livestock space is what we want to broker now, so that whatever the problems of livestock farmers are in terms of competition and search for food and water, is that a lot of grazing reserves, for instance, are abandoned, so many of them encroach, and affecting, the interaction between the livestock producers and the environment. So many of the cattle routes have been taken over because of urbanization and development or infrastructure development across those routes. So there are a lot of issues that have come up which creates conflict during the movement. So what we are looking at now is a robust engagement of all the affected actors to begin to look at alternatives instead of just migratory tendencies that create more of this conflict and transhumance that has become a burden in the entire space, is to look at attracting producers into settlement areas where they can begin to have access to water, access to other things that can assist them, especially educational institutions, health institutions, security, and also to have engagement with security agencies. We are very glad that in our conversation, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, was in attendance, and during our engagement, he also provided insight into what the military is doing to support the peaceful coexistence and to also address the criminal elements. Because some of those things, you see, if you lose your livelihood, there is a tendency that criminality will be the next port of action. So we are looking at, even compensation, even those whose livelihood has been distorted by mere criminal element, should also be assisted. And that is why even in the livestock sector, in the crop sector, you have a solid insurance package. The livestock sector should also begin to enjoy some insurance package so that they don't suffer endlessly. Because it is not nice that the kind of stock you inherit even from your parent, your grandparent in the cultural mode, you lose it, you become, you get hysterical, and that you begin to do negative things. So there could be a transition whereby you have interventions that can address some of these shortcomings. And those criminal elements can also be addressed based on the laws of the land. So therefore, we are talking about holistic approach to creating an enabling environment for all the actors in the livestock sector to thrive, along with other producers in the crops and other sectors of the economy, so that we don't begin to treat them in isolation. We begin to treat them with some kind of focus whereby they will all come together and have coexistence. And the only way we can engender that is to seek the attention of our traditional rulers, who are very close to the grassroots. They have their own internal mechanisms of resolving conflict that are historical, and that because of their legitimization role, whereby even when political leaders make pronouncement, they still go back to their traditional rulers to confirm whether if it is true or not, or whether if they should adopt or not. So I think it is a good development that we should encourage our traditional rulers to take it up right from their ward level to their districts and to their emirate levels where that exists. I gave you a very good example. When we have an interaction with a group of producers from Enugu State, they now begin to provide an environment where all those who trade in cattle, for instance, will come to a point, assemble their cattle, get feed for them, and then prepare them for market, so that they are free from the vagaries of hoodlums and attacks. They have internal mechanism to protect, traders in that part of the world. So which show that in every community there are good examples to learn from and to cherish. So what we are doing at this level now is to get the attention of all the stakeholders so that they can begin to appreciate that this window of opportunity must not be squandered. And that is why when you look at the report, it's all encompassing. It has taken care of the entire value chain for all the issues and the solutions. It's like a one-stop shop whereby you can confidently say what Mr. President has done is to look at it holistically and say, look, this is the game changer. We don't have to continue to be in the same mode of many years or some 100 years of the past. We can change the lifestyle from cultural heritage to modernity in a transition way. It has to be gradual, and I'm sure by the time we're done, this country will be very, very pleased with what is going on.
Okay. We have our very first caller on the line, Abubakar calling in from Lagos. Hello.
Now call back.
Hello.
Can I talk?
Hello. Abubakar, are you there?
Hello, sir.
Go ahead.
I thank God that last talk will bring general peace for this country. Because if farmers and those who they train pig, cow, if they any what they do, I dey beg the government that make Enugu join hand with House of Representatives, those senators for Abuja. Make them make a law that any big man who they in down that to the make to the send people, to the kill people, to the kidnap people, make you quickly wash your hand come out. Any person where they go point and say, "Now the oga for the topping piece of people not to do farm, not to do their work, make the man just retire from the work. If any person they catch, say 9 days in charge of kidnapping or killing or did that for inside bush, make the no look that person face.
Okay. All right.
Make the person the elephant. Make the killer. Yes.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Abubakar. Is advocating for more stringent laws for those who are caught and those who carry out activities that disrupt the activities of the farming activities and all such. Well, the laws are there. And so thank you, Abubakar, for calling in. Let's keep the calls coming through. And there's an aspect I'd like you to expatiate more on, and you've always referred to it, about having more youths in this initiative. Yes, we know that one of the challenges that the country has faced in the past is the drudgery associated with farming and agricultural practices in the past. And now we are okay. All right, we'll get back to this question. Let's take in this call. Suleiman calling in from Niger State. Hello.
We lost you.
All right, we lost the call. Right. So now, with this initiative, let's take the young man or young woman who looks into it and say, yes, we're told that there are modern practices now where we can fit in away from the drudgery of what we used to know. Animal husbandry, how do I fit in?
Thank you very much. Before I take that question, I just want to step back a bit and talk about ECOWAS protocol as it concerns farmer-herder conflict. And that's one aspect that Nigeria, we need to look at very closely. We have the ECOWAS protocol that states clearly that before you get into a country from another country, that the receiving country needs to know and that the country needs to be prepared for you. But we don't have our own, the guidelines that will help and ensure that as herders move in from other countries into Nigeria, that they are bound by those guidelines. Because ECOWAS protocol is supposed to be domesticated in country. So for Nigeria, we are yet to domesticate the ECOWAS protocol. And it's part of what the Reform Committee is looking at. How do we domesticate the ECOWAS protocol? And if possible, review the ECOWAS protocol to make sure that Nigeria benefits fully from it and is not just receiving headers that come with conflict? Just quickly.
Right.
And then to take your question.
Yes, if I might ask you to hold on a moment, you'll take that question, because this call is coming through from Kuje. Isa on the line. Hello, Isa.
Go ahead, Isa.
Is Isa still there?
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Isa Yusuf.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm thinking of we having, because one of the speakers there said there is the need for youths to be involved in this. And the other guest also said that instead of America that almost went through 100 years to get to where they are, these days you can use 5 years to get to where you want to be. I'm happy to hear this, because my belief is that agriculture is one of the ways that we can get our youth out of poverty in Nigeria. So why not we do what we do in paramilitary, in military, and in the sports sector, where we have very young kids, catching them young, training them in agriculture. That will go a long way in helping us to get very young chaps that know this agricultural system from start to finish. And they will be proud of it, and they will be doing it professionally. Just like you see very young kids doing parade, just like the very senior military officers would do it. Just like you see young guys playing football, just like the best professionals in football would do. So we now have kids who are 20 years, 25 years, 16 years, going into farming with all pride, with all sense of commitment, with all sense of responsibility, and thereby producing food for Nigeria. I've been thinking about this. I hope the committee will look into it and see how this can be implemented. Thank you very much, Cyril. A
Right.
veteran journalist, God will bless you.
Thank you very much, Isa. Well, it ties and aligns with what you were just going to talk
Yes.
about. Right.
Thank you very much, and that is very correct. Except we have the young people come on board and take animal husbandry very seriously and move us away from the traditional method. That is also getting the children of the pastoralists into modern agriculture, modern animal agriculture, and not going the way their parents went. And the way to do this is to engage in what we call TVET. TVET is technical, vocational, and educational training across all value chain. And young people, no matter what your profession is, you are taught the rudiments of husbandry practices right from when you are very young. And like he said, the children of the pastoralists and young graduates have their hands on husbandry practices. We gradually and speedily, actually, move away from traditional method. Talking about how to ensure that we have it's technology driven. It's right now, to start with, we have to understand that livestock, animal agriculture, and crop agriculture are far apart. They are not similar in any way. And for livestock farming, there are low-hanging fruits for the young people. You can get into poultry production. You can also get into sheep and goats. You can get into rabbitry. You can get into snail farming. It doesn't have to be a cow. And so the fastest way is to ensure that the young people move away from just looking for jobs, and that we have, a revolving loan and some form of financing, which our secretary has said. We need financing in this sector, and that's why the creation of the Ministry of Livestock Development is coming at a time when we need it most, and we're most grateful to Mr. President. This is the time we are even talking about a bank of livestock development. We need to have dedicated funding for livestock that the youth can access. Interested youth, because it's not enough to just train any youth. You have to be interested in livestock development for you to really carry it on. It's not an easy area, but it is possible. So we need to make sure that funding is available for the young people, training, they are well trained, and then we can give them that start that they require. A lot of people are interested, but the funding is just not there.
Can I add to the ECOWAS protocol?
Okay. Well, yes, well, let's get this call in and then you can put in that. One of our regular callers, Umar Anachi, is on the line, calling in from Birnin Kebi. Are you there?
Yes. Thank you, Zero.
Yes.
My name is Umar Anachi, calling from Birnin Kebi. You see, during former President Buhari, a lot of initiatives were on course, just like Ruga Initiative, presidential ranking system, and a lot of things went on. What assurance are these people going to give us that this initiative was, this potential was unblocked forever? Because during that time, there was even one cattle partnering initiative. They asked us to bring a business plan, and they asked us to even open an account, all those things. But at the end of the day, it was abandoned. What assurance are these people going to give us that this time around, this potential will be unlocked forever? It will not be abandoned. May God continue to bless our country. Thank you.
Let me just respond to
Right.
him.
Thank you,
Yes.
Omar.
Yes. Umar, I can assure you that the commitment of Mr. President to this reform agenda is not in doubt. He has demonstrated this during our inauguration. He said it clearly and loudly. That I wanted to add to what Mrs. Winnie Solani said about ECOWAS protocol, that he has directed the Attorney General of the Federation that any law that the committee feels need to be changed or modified should be brought to his attention. And we're compiling all those that will make it easier for the sector to thrive. In addition, to allay his fears, it is unbelievable that during inauguration, Mr. President challenged us with 16 terms of reference. And in that process, we're able to generate 120 objectives. And as I'm talking to you, one of those objectives is the creation of Ministry of Livestock Development. And Mr. President there and then pronounced the establishment of Ministry of Livestock Development and did not stop at that. He immediately, on that directive, asked us to do everything possible to midwife the successful takeoff of that ministry. And the committee went into action and discovered a monumental strategic building in the central business district area of Abuja, and informed the president that, Mr. President, that this building will be good to house the livestock sector. Mr. President did not only approve immediately, but they directed the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory to renovate and furnish that building without delay. A communication to our committee from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, has been received by the chairman of the committee, or the co-chairman, Professor Tairu Jega, to formally allocate that building to the Federal Ministry of Livestock Development. So what else do you need to prove? That within a month, a building has been secured, and in the last few hours or days, a minister designate has been appointed, already undergoing screening for confirmation by the Senate, which is to show the commitment of Mr. President. Before, when those policies were in place, there was no driver it was left in hanging because it was still an appendage to the Ministry of Agriculture. But today, we have no excuse to fail because a full ministry that will have full budgetary provisions is in place. And Mr. President's commitment is what made him to chair this committee himself and co-chaired by Professor Tayo Jega. And all of us serving, we have shown and demonstrated commitment from and the people who are drawn from across Nigeria. It's not one section or one ethnic group or one interest group. It is professionals that are driving this process. Thank you.
We have Ridwan on the line calling in from Abuja here. Hello. Thanks for staying on.
Ridwan.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ridwan. Yeah, I am from Abuja. Thank you very much. I've been a very religious Tuesday Live attendant, actually. Thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity. I want to, first of all, congratulate the new ministry. Yeah, I'm happy to see that at least we have a ministry that is actually working towards food security in the country. Talking about the Ministry for Livestock Development. But I would have loved to see that it's named Federal Ministry of Animal Health and Livestock Development. This is because there are a lot of animal health issues that need to be addressed if you actually want to have a very good yield in your livestock. So I think this is just by the way. And talking about animal health, I am very passionate about antimicrobial resistance. I'm sure we're all aware as stakeholders sitting over there, aware of the current global burden of antimicrobial resistance. And that's why I feel the Ministry of Livestock should also incorporate animal health. There is a study that was published recently on the antibiotics, antibiotic resistance in babies, specifically cholesterol. And this has been directly associated with probably food taken by humans, probably the mother, and then it's being transmitted to the baby. So all the things are as a result of use of those antibiotics in animal health, livestock specifically, for growth promotion. So what is the ministry actually doing? What are the plans to make sure that these livestock are healthy and safe for human consumption? It's very important as we are talking about livestock development in the country. And lastly, I also am aware that the National Action Plan on Antimicrobial Resistance was just launched last week by the Honorable Coordinating Minister of Health, of course, with the other Ministry of Agri and Ministry of Environment. I would want to see the Ministry of Livestock coming in to implement the National Action Plan on AMR because it's a One Health document. And I'm happy to see the genomic guy sitting over there. And this is also to remind you that the National Genomic Surveillance Strategy has also been launched at the same time. So this is an opportunity because the genomic surveillance strategy is not just for the human health, it's cut across the One Health sector. And of course, both communicable and non-communicable diseases. And this is an opportunity, of course, to leverage, to see how you can use it to develop livestock production in Nigeria as a whole. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I will continue to listen and learn from the stakeholders sitting today. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so very much. And Rilwan has brought it to the table of AIG Aishatu Baju and Dr. Pupola. So in that order.
You want to start?
Okay, so that's fine. Thanks very much for actually going to the world of omics technology again, which is one of the in things across the world. Let me firstly say that the omics technology you mentioned, genomics, lipidomics, metabolomics, all omics, the state-of-the-art and cutting-edge technology that allows you to go below even molecular level and slice into the gene. So what are we talking about here, which is very important to what he's saying? We could actually have animals that are going to be economical through genomics. Because when you see that this animal, you've actually built in disease resistance in them. You don't need to pay more for drugs. And even when you see the issue we had during COVID, the rapid discovery and the production of vaccine today may actually leverage on RNA and DNA technology. So when COVID came, within how many hours, you could actually, or days, we saw vaccine being developed. So this is taking me into the area of animal health because the omics technology is actually telling us that we could revamp the entire value chain when it comes to our animal health system in the country. We could do a lot of diagnosis that is going to be non-invasive. So you don't need to actually take physical sample from animals. There are a lot of things that you could do at genomic level that can actually tell you if this animal is going to be diseased at what age, and they could quickly change that. A lot of things that are possible. However, one thing that actually strikes me in our conversation that can actually make all of this sustainable is the issue of food security versus feed security. So you could see that the president, in one of the best wisdom he has actually demonstrated, is in the renaming of the Ministry of Agriculture to refocus it from rural development that is linked to drudgery to food security that can lead to food system and sustainability. So when that is being done, what I can say again that the president has done very wisely is the creation of this Ministry of Livestock Development. Reason being the fact that when you look at the total population of livestock in Nigeria, it's actually representing, the total population of livestock in Nigeria compared to that of human beings in Nigeria. The total population of human beings, as much as we have over 200 million, is just about 25% of the total population of the livestock. So meaning that when you're actually driving food security for 200 million organisms, about 800 million organisms are being neglected and not being looked into in terms of food security. These are clear statistics. And these things are living every day, they must eat every day. So there's no way you're not going to actually have conflict on resources. Mind you, you are the one keeping them. They are ready to go back to the wild if you leave them. And that is why till tomorrow I'll continue to thank those people that are pastoralists and the custodian of our animals. Yeah. Because if they have not been keeping them and they have let them loose, then we will not have anything. I was talking about extinction of some of the breeds because the technology to support them were not there. However, at the committee again, like I said, we are not a problem-oriented committee. We are to reform. We've actually seen this as an issue. And that is why part of the proposal is not to look at research and development in isolation. All the institutes we are proposing that will be coming out under this new ministry are going to be RDI institutes, research, development, and innovation. You must be able to take that research outcome to a commercial value. You must be able to take the R&D outcome to create wealth. You must be able to use it to improve livelihood. And it's going to be a chain from the lab to the table. And these are things that are actually different that we are looking at. And let me finally say that all what we are talking about here, you could see openings for the youth. Because with all this high-tech technology, what inspires the youths to come into any venture today, that's what you see in ICT, is because they want to explore. In the exploration, they are actually going to be seeing amazing things. So amazing things can actually be in the livestock sector, but not through the traditional method. Look at this particular phone you've seen. There are facilities that you can use this phone to do diagnosis of disease on animals. Just this phone. And these are the kind of things that you could actually have a number of youths. When you're talking about reconnaissance survey and using satellite technology to guide the movement of our animals, to even do the animal sensors we are talking about. Using drone technology, tell the boys, and the youth and say, okay, we want to know, calibrate your drone and you'll be able to actually fly over an area and count the numbers of animals. They are excited to do that.
Okay. All right, let's quickly take this call, and then we'll come to you. Peter from Abuja. Hello, Peter.
All right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hello. Yes, hello, good evening.
Evening.
My name is Peter. Dr. Puka had spoken earlier about the domestication of the global livestock action plan. My question is, what deliberate efforts, what deliberate conscious efforts are being made to ensure that each time Nigeria signs on to any global protocol, that they implement such protocols? Because it's not enough to just sign on to any global protocols, but then domestication and implementation becomes a problem. And this cuts across some of the ministries. This livestock ministry is something that is very germane to the development of Nigeria's livestock. What deliberate efforts are being made to ensure sustainability so that whatever action plan that is being signed on to can be fully domesticated and implemented going forward?
Right. Thank you, Peter. Dr. Pukwala would respond to that just after AIG Baju deals with the issue of growth promotion, antibiotics, and animal health.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. I keep saying that animal disease control is a very important thing, irrespective of whether we do genomics. Also, even in the developed countries, we are still talking about disease control, disease eradication, and so on. So our veterinarians, of course, are part of this new ministry. And, you know, Mr. President is a businessman also. And part of the responsibility that he has given is also to see the business component of livestock. That's why we are looking at the increase in our GDP. You cannot trade in animals or animal products where there's disease. Basically, it's not about the size, whether the animal is fat or this, but you have to control this. There are certain diseases, if they are there in their country and you are not able to control or totally eradicate them, you cannot trade in these animals. So we are very mindful of this, and the committee is looking at making sure that the entire veterinary services in the country, in that ministry, is strengthened to be able to give that opportunity of trade and increasing our GDP. And similarly, on the issue of antimicrobial resistance, there is, of course, collaboration within the One Health system, making sure that there's responsible use of antimicrobial agents. Personally, I've had experience with antimicrobial resistance. My grandson was just sick sometimes. And we went to the hospital. So much antibiotics was given, so many days, and then we realized that it was an issue of antimicrobial resistance. So most of the common antimicrobial agents that were pumped, the microorganism was resistant to it, and you have to go and start buying very expensive ones. So the common ones have been abused, and most of the times it's through irresponsible use of antibiotics on animals. Most of these antibiotics have withdrawal period. When you give certain antibiotics, you cannot drink milk or any product from that particular animal. You cannot slaughter it to eat the beef until a certain period, some 7 days, some 14 days, and so on and so forth. So this is a very important thing. It's a global movement towards working against antimicrobial resistance, and this committee is very very passionate about all these issues, and there are things that we are going to put on the ground, and that is why we had this stakeholder engagement this the day before yesterday, so that all the specialists in those areas, antimicrobial resistance, everything that has to do with livestock, so that we'll be able to put this ministry as it is starting with a very strong foundation. And as I all said, and can confirm also, that there's strong commitment by Mr. President to ensure that the livestock sector is standing. I think the livestock development ministry is the luckiest ministry in this country, that it has so much attention, prepares so much. With, you know, when you have a very strong foundation, so it is starting on a very good footing. So, and everything that has to do with livestock industry is actually being looked at by this committee to be able to give the ministry a very effective start off.
Let me refer to the inception report that was submitted to Mr. President. As you are aware, in this report,
just before you do that, let's take this call. Austin, calling in from Lagos.
Austin, your own.
Austin.
All right, thank you.
Right.
Hello, Cyril.
Hello.
My name is Austin and I'm calling from Lagos. I have listened extensively to your distinguished guest and I am highly impressed. I can see that they have very laudable programs that will improve the livestock industry in Nigeria. But I want to ask, how can these programs be achieved with a law on open grazing? That is my concern, because the secretary mentioned a country in South Africa, that is Botswana, and I'm well aware of Botswana, where the cattle that they have more than doubles the population of that country. You see a man having as much as 250,000 cattle, 400,000 goats and rams, that they have found in ranches. And these ranches are 40, 50 kilometers out of town. But here in Nigeria, we practice open grazing. How can we achieve this program with open grazing? I see it as a very big challenge. So I want to use the opportunity to advise the members of the committee sitting down there and whoever is listening, if they can write a letter to the National Assembly, let them transfer the powers to the state assemblies to handle these laws, so that any state that wants to that is not comfortable in practicing ranching can enact it into law. And any state that is comfortable with open grazing can enact it into law. That is the only way we can move forward. It's just a suggestion. Thank you very much for this program.
All right. Thank you so much, Justin. Thank you.
We accept and take note of his recommendations. It's a work in progress. But one that struck me that I need to talk about is the issue of animal health. In the 15 technical departments that the committee has proposed in this inception report, 5 of those, that is 1/3 of it, is dealing with animal health, from the issue of animal health services to the issue of veterinary epidemiology and risk assessment, and we're also dealing with veterinary public health and food safety, as well as the issue of veterinary sanitary mandate and wine health that is common in the current with the current Ministry of Health, and also the issue of veterinary products and quality assurance. Because one of the things we discover in our stakeholders engagement is proliferation of fake drugs, as you have for humans. You also have fake drugs in animals too. So we need a surveillance system that can be like NAFDAC. If NAFDAC is not covering that area adequately, we need to pay attention so that we don't create more health problems as a result of the administration. So this is where veterinary extension services and innovation that is being proposed as a technical department will have a lot of work to do in terms of sensitization and awareness creation, and to also talk about technology transfer so that we will move from where we are now to the promised land as envisaged by Mr. President.
All right, thank you so much. Let me come quickly to Mrs. Laisholari. And initially, yes, it's not going to be about the size, but the yield and what we get out of it. You had started talking about this initially when it comes to feed and fodder for the animals. because we'll run out of time here now, so would like you to speak on that quickly.
Okay. For feed and fodder, I like that we're starting on that this time around. The feed and fodder, like Dr. Map has said, you can't have food security if you don't have feed security. That means that within the feed and fodder subsector, we need to do a lot, and we have provided for this. The committee has provided for this. The feed and fodder subsector is at 3.3 trillion naira investment, and we're not looking at it. The young people that we are talking about will find employment within the feed and fodder. Over 500 poultry that we have, and about 58 cattle that we have, and about 120 goats that we have, they need to feed. And we're not doing much yet. So that aspect alone in the livestock sector, that subsector is huge in itself and can accommodate a lot of people. And before we go into full ranching and talk about a ban on open grazing, we need to take care of our feed and fodder subsector. You can't talk about ranching if you don't have feed. And so a lot of effort needs to get into feed and fodder to have adequate feed and fodder for the animals before we begin to ban open grazing. And because at the end of the day, you see the high cost of poultry and poultry products right now is because of feed. It's because of high cost of maize and soya. And we need to have that dedicated for livestock. We don't need to compete with human beings. No, the livestock need to have their own maize and their own soya. So we need to have farmers dedicated for maize and soya feed crops for livestock and pasture for livestock. So it's a whole lot of work that we still have to do as a country to get the feed and fodder, to understand that the feed and fodder subsector is huge enough to even accommodate a lot of people. We can grow a lot of feed and fodder in areas where we have comparative advantage. In the southern part of the country, where we have rains, in the northern part of the country, where we have the land, we can do dry season irrigated pasture. And we can have pasture down south that we produce and send up north where the animals are. And we can have maize produced for feed crops produced, and also to have more than enough that we feed the animals. Then we can talk about ban on open grazing. Because if you do ban open grazing now, we wonder what the animals will eat.
I always say on this program that we can't exhaust the issues in one program. And this program that deals with livestock development particularly, Prof, I'm going to ask that we extend this conversation at some other point in time. There's so many other things which we haven't even touched on and which are key to this initiative. So we would ask that at some point in time we revisit this issue of livestock development and have these experts, or even more experts, come in and talk about how this initiative will succeed as to provide the employment opportunities, grow the economy, ensure a safe and secure environment, and peaceful coexistence. But now we've just run out of time.
It's understandable.
So we must thank you all for coming on this program. And we hope to continue with this conversation. So for all our guests tonight, Professor Mohammed Kuta Yahaya, Secretary, Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee, thank you so very much.
It's a pleasure to join you here.
Thank you. Let me say a big thank you also to Mrs. Winnie Lai Sholari, a member of the committee and Director of Animal Husbandry Services, and we've also identified you as the country focal person for Resilient Feed and Fodder Systems Project in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Siri.
Well, AIG Aishatu Abubakar Baju, President of the Veterinary Council of Nigeria, it's been interesting having you talk about animal health here.
Thank you.
We should extend this conversation at some point in time.
Thank you very much.
And a big thank you also to Dr. Mustafa Puka. I am very interested in this genomics and all the other nomics, really. And I'm hoping that we'll extend this conversation at some other point in time. Thank you. For all those who called in, thank you for being part of this program. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Bye for now.